I never imagined that a simple, ordinary day could transform so radically. I was just going to work, as I do every day, when something strange happened. It was an ordinary morning, the sun was still weak, and I was going along with my head full of everyday thoughts. But suddenly, a sharp pain in my chest caused me to lose consciousness, and before I could react, my body was already falling toward the steering wheel. I can't explain exactly what happened, but somehow, I realized that I was no longer inside my body. I was there, outside of myself, watching everything from above, as if I were a spectator of my own life. I didn't feel fear, just a deep calm, as if it were natural to be in that state. The feeling of being detached from my body was indescribable, but at the same time, I felt at peace, without hurry, as if time had stopped. It was at that moment that something very strange happened. I began to be pulled, not physically, but as if an invisible force were taking me to a distant place, without me being able to resist. The air grew denser. The light around me turned into something more intense and warm, like a glow that enveloped me completely. I looked down and saw my body already motionless in the car, and a part of me wanted to go back, wanted to do something, but the feeling was so strange, so immersive, that fear didn't reach me. On the contrary, it felt like I was being guided by something greater, something I couldn't fully understand, but that I knew deep down to be divine. And that's how I found myself facing a tunnel of light. I didn't see it as something physical, but more like a portal, something that seemed to call me with an indescribable energy. I knew I had to move forward. I advanced, without thinking, without questioning. The light wasn't just light. It was a sensation, a vibration that filled me in a way that human words cannot describe. It was as if every part of my being dissolved in that glow, but at the same time, I was still me. There was no weight in my body. In fact, I couldn't feel my body. There was only consciousness, floating toward what seemed like an inevitable destiny. As I moved forward, I realized that this light wasn't empty. There was something in it, something alive, something that watched me. And then, before I could even try to understand, I saw it. Before me, there appeared a presence so intense that my entire being trembled. There were no doubts, no need for explanation. I knew exactly who was there. It was Jesus, but not in the way I had always imagined or seen depicted. He was not a distant or inaccessible figure. He was real, so real that I felt my soul burn just from being before him. The love that emanated from him was something that no word could translate. He looked at me, and in that look, I saw my entire life, every mistake, every right, every pain, and every moment of happiness passed before me like a movie. And contrary to what I had always feared, there was no condemnation, only understanding, only love. A love so deep that it made me cry without tears, because I no longer had a physical body to feel the weight of tears. I didn't need to say anything. He already knew everything. He knew my pains, my insecurities, the questions I had always asked myself in silence and never had the courage to express. I felt I could dissolve in that gaze and disappear completely, but at the same time, something kept me there, present, as if there was something I needed to understand before moving forward. Then I felt a change around me. The space of light began to transform, and before me, a new vision began to take shape. First, I saw an ancient land, very different from the world we know today. It was Africa, but not the Africa that modern history teaches us. There was no hunger, no misery. On the contrary, what I saw was a grand civilization, strong, prosperous. I saw kings and queens with golden crowns. I saw immense temples. I saw a people connected with the divine in a way I had never seen before. There was knowledge there, a deep wisdom, something that seemed to flow directly from God to those people. And then, Jesus spoke to me, not with words, but with a truth that rooted itself within me, as if it had always been there, and I just hadn't been able to see it until that moment. The vision unfolding before me was clear, vivid, impossible to ignore. I saw how, over the centuries, external forces had worked to erase and distort this truth. Slavery, colonialism, invasions, all of this was not just a physical battle. It was an attempt, a grand maneuver to separate that people from their divine connection. What was revealed to me in that vision was something much deeper than simple physical oppression. It was spiritual. They had been separated from their true identity, their spiritual power, their connection with the divine. It wasn't just the fight for freedom that the Black people faced, but a fight against the attempt to erase the very soul of a nation. I felt an impact so great in that moment, something I could never have imagined experiencing. It was as if all the weight of history was upon me, and at the same time, a deep relief took over my being. I understood, once and for all, that the Black people had always been so much more than the world had shown. The roots, the culture, the wisdom, all that had been silenced, forgotten, and distorted, was back, intact, and more powerful than ever. The images of strength, courage, and spirituality that unfolded before me were unmistakable. I saw the spirit of resistance, not as a physical struggle, but as a living connection with something much greater, something divine. The visions continued, and now something even more grand revealed itself before me. I saw, clearly, how that historical manipulation was not limited to the past, but extended into the present. Time and time again, the Black people had been placed in a position of forgetfulness, of contempt, but even so, their essence, their spirit, remained intact, invisible to the eyes of those who sought to dominate. And at that moment, Jesus spoke again, but not in words. It was as if a truth was transferred directly into my soul, a truth I never would have imagined. The Black people had not been broken. Even after everything that had been imposed on them, their spirit remained strong, vibrant, and was about to awaken in a way the world never imagined. What touched me the most, and what made me understand the depth of this entire revelation, was when Jesus showed me a scene that seemed to be the future. I saw the Black people in different parts of the world, awakening to a greater truth, an ancestral knowledge, a deep spiritual connection that had always been part of them. It was as if all that energy, all that wisdom, was being revived, and I realized that this was not just something personal, but something collective. There was a wave of spiritual awakening, something that transcends the fight. For social justice, something much greater, as if it were a response to all the attempts at oppression, a direct response from the divine. And, through this wave of awakening, I saw the world beginning to change. The most impressive thing is that, as I observed this spiritual transformation happening, I realized that this wasn't a struggle of races, as many think. It wasn't a battle for power or domination, but a restoration of truth, a greater, divine truth that needed to be understood by all, without exception. Jesus revealed to me that this was part of an ancient prophecy, which spoke of the restoration of the spiritual connection of the Black people with the divine. And this prophecy was not a simple promise of change for a single community. It would affect all of humanity. It was a restoration of the lost balance, an opportunity for the entire world to reevaluate spirituality and the truth about the relationship with God. As all of this unfolded before me, a deep sense of responsibility took over me. I knew that I was not there just to be a spectator of this vision. There was something I had to do, something I needed to share with the world. I, who had always been just an ordinary person, who had never considered myself someone special, suddenly found myself with the mission to spread the truth I had received. And it wasn't a simple mission. I knew I would face resistance, doubts, even mockery. But the weight of the revelation was so great that, at no point did I think of giving up. I knew it was real, that I had lived it, that what I saw and felt was not just an illusion caused by the trauma of the accident. It was the purest truth. When I woke up, the feeling of being back in my life was, in a way, surreal. I was in the hospital, surrounded by doctors and nurses, who seemed more concerned with my physical state than with what I had experienced. The accident, the pain, the recovery, all of it seemed irrelevant compared to what I had witnessed. They thought I was traumatized, that I was just dealing with the impact of the accident, but there was no trauma in my heart. There was certainty, a deep conviction that I wasn't dreaming. What I lived was real. The revelation I had was true. Even with all the certainty in my heart, there was something in me that didn't know how to explain everything I had experienced. The people around me talked about the accident, about the pain I had felt, but my mind was elsewhere. It was going back to that vision, to that meeting with Jesus. to the images I had seen. Everything I now saw and understood made sense in a way it never had before. I knew I couldn't keep that to myself. I had to share it. I didn't know how, nor with whom, but I knew the mission I had been given was clear. People needed to know the truth about the Black people, about their history, about their connection with the divine. However, I knew it would be difficult to be heard. How could someone like me, an ordinary person, convince others that I had lived through something so profound, something no one could understand without going through the same experience? And more importantly, how could I share something so personal, so intimate, without being considered someone out of touch with reality, delirious? I knew the mission I had wouldn't be easy. I didn't know where to start, but I felt a pressure inside me, an urgency to tell what I had seen, what I had learned. The weight of the truth was immense. I felt like I was no longer the same person who had entered that accident. The Jessica I knew before seemed distant, like a version of myself who had no idea what really mattered in life. Now I carried a profound knowledge, a wisdom that transcends any logical explanation. I knew that the awakening I saw in the visions was happening, but I needed someone to listen, someone who was willing to believe in what I had witnessed. The Black people were rising spiritually, but the world needed to know this. I needed to be the voice that shared this truth with everyone, so they could understand the greatness of the revelation I had lived. I began to tell my story to the people closest to me, but I quickly realized how difficult it would be for them to understand what I had experienced. Some tried to be kind, as if I were just dealing with trauma. Others looked at me with some doubt in their eyes, as if they thought I was just trying to make sense of something horrible that had happened, and that hurt me more than I imagined. I knew that whatever had happened to me wasn't something made up, wasn't something my mind had created as a way of dealing with the pain. I had seen, I had felt, I had lived. But on the other hand, there was something in me that understood that maybe I was being tested. I couldn't be discouraged by other people's opinions. The mission was greater than my insecurity. I found myself at a crossroads. The fear of being judged, of being ignored, almost paralyzed me. How could anyone believe something so unusual, so beyond everyone's understanding? And at the same time, there was no way for me to turn back. I knew what I had seen. I knew what God had shown me, what Jesus had revealed to me. And this truth needed to be shared. Even if it was difficult, even if it was painful, I had to speak. I had to continue. So I began to write, to put into words everything I had lived. I wrote about the visions, about ancient Africa, about the spirituality of the Black people, historical manipulation, and the greatness still within them. I wrote with an open heart, with my soul overflowing with truth, trying to convey what had been revealed to me. As I wrote, something strange began to happen. I felt as if an invisible force was guiding me, as if I were merely the channel for something greater, something beyond me. When I finished writing, I felt a deep relief, but also some apprehension. I knew those words had the power to move many people, and when I finally shared what I had written, it wasn't easy. Some read and remained silent, others criticized, and some, even skeptics, said I was just processing a trauma experience. But deep down, I knew those words weren't mine, that I wasn't the author. It was something greater that was manifesting through me. The most impressive thing, however, was when I started receiving messages from people who somehow felt touched by what I shared. They said something inside them had been awakened. Some talked about how the story of the Black people had never been told this way, how the words about their spirituality and greatness opened their eyes to a new reality. Others, who had also faced challenges and hardships, said they felt a renewed power, as if, somehow, it helped them reconnect with their own roots, with the truth they had always known existed, but had never been acknowledged. The response I started receiving gave me strength. I was not alone. I never imagined my story would have such an impact. I never thought the words I wrote could touch so many people. And yet, the more I spoke, the more I felt that the mission was truly being fulfilled. It was no longer about me, but about something greater than anything I could comprehend. It was about a collective awakening, something Jesus had shown me, something bigger than any of us. People began to realize that the real struggle wasn't just for rights, but for a spiritual restoration, for a reconnection with something that had been lost. erased. And this did not only affect the Black people, it was a truth spreading to all, a truth that called everyone to reflect on what they knew about spirituality and the purpose of life. The message was clear to me now. The Black people weren't fighting against the world, but against the forces trying to distort their spiritual identity, their connection with God. It was as if, by fighting to reclaim their identity and truth, the entire world was being called to do the same. The struggle wasn't just political or social. It was a spiritual struggle. And by understanding this, I realized that the awakening I witnessed in the visions was something that would affect the world in a much deeper way than I could ever have imagined. It was a rebirth, a transformation that began in the hearts of everyone, starting with the Black people and spreading to every corner of the planet. What Jesus showed me was that everyone was being invited to participate in this great revelation. Today, I still sit in silence thinking about everything I lived. The experience was so intense, so deep, that often I wonder if I really lived all of that, or if it was just a product of my mind trying to cope with the trauma of the accident. But with each passing day, I feel there's no doubt. What I lived was real, and the mission I now carry is clearer than ever. When I look at the world around me, I see signs of this transformation happening. I see the awakening, not just in the Black people, but everywhere. People are beginning to question what they believe about spirituality, about history, about what really matters in life. And although the path is long, I feel we are all walking toward a place of greater understanding and connection. I don't know how the story of my experience will unfold in the future. I don't know how much I will be able to continue sharing, or the real impact my message will have. But one thing I know for sure: nothing will ever be the same again. I am different. The world around me is different. What I saw and learned is always with me, and I can no longer look at life the same way. The spirituality I saw in my journey is not a vague or abstract idea, but a tangible reality. It's a connection with the divine, something that everyone carries within themselves, a flame that cannot be extinguished, no matter how hard they try. The Black people, as Jesus showed me, have a vital role in this awakening, and we are all, in some way, part of this bigger story. I find myself, sometimes, reflecting on the impact my experience might have on others. Can anyone understand the depth of what I saw? Do the words I shared manage to translate the truth I lived? I hope that, at least, something I said touches the heart of those who need to hear it. I know that the journey to restore spiritual balance in the world won't be quick, but every small step counts. The awakening is happening, and even if it takes time, the truth will always find its way. What matters is that we all, as human beings, reconnect with the divine within us and understand that our differences do not separate us from God, but make us unique and valuable in His eyes. Now, as I look at my life, I feel that I was chosen for this mission. It is not an easy task, and often I find myself fighting against doubts and fears. However, inside me, there is a peace I have never known before. I know that what I lived was not just for me, but for all of us. The mission I carry is greater than any of us can comprehend, but I know that as people open up to this truth, something profound will change in the heart of each one. I am not a special person, but rather a messenger of a greater truth, a truth that Jesus revealed to me in that moment, and that I now carry with love and courage, ready to share with the world. As I share my story, I realize that the real challenge is not telling what I lived, but living according to what I learned. The revelation of Jesus, of all the wisdom about the Black people and their connection with the divine, is something that has completely transformed me. Sometimes, I feel like a different person, almost a stranger within my own body. The world seems the same, but at the same time, it is completely different. Now every simple gesture, every conversation, every glance seems to carry a different weight, a greater responsibility. I can no longer ignore what I saw and lived. The truth is with me, and everything around me resonates with it. No matter how difficult the path has been so far, there is no doubt in my heart that this is what God had reserved for me. I don't know how the future will unfold, but somehow, I know that my mission continues. The Black people, with all their spiritual and historical richness, are rising. And this is not a fight just for them. It is a fight for all of us, a fight for truth, for the restoration of connection with the divine, for the search for balance and understanding. We are all part of this journey. The revelation I lived is only the beginning of something much greater, and deep down, I know that, in some way, all of us, together, are being called to this transformation. Today, I am someone different, someone who carries the responsibility of a revelation so grand and transformative. I know that the words I have shared and their impact are just the beginning of something still to come. The spiritual awakening is underway, and I can't help but feel that somehow we are all connected in this journey. Perhaps not everyone will understand the depth of what happened to me, but deep down, I know that the mission I carry is not mine. It is all of ours. The Black people, with all their spiritual power, have the role of leading the world to a new understanding of the divine, and I, as a witness to this truth, am here to share what I saw, to remind everyone that we are all children of God, equal and divinely special. No matter how much the world tries to erase, hide, or distort the truth, the light of true spirituality will never go out. It will always find its way, just as I found my purpose. The accident that almost took my life wasn't the end, but the beginning of a journey I could never have imagined. Today, I look back and see that the true transformation was not just external, but something that touched my soul in a profound and immeasurable way. God chose me to live this experience, and now I can do nothing but move forward, carrying the truth I was called to share, with faith, courage, and love. This is how I follow my journey, with a heart full of peace and hope. The awakening is happening, and we are all part of it.